Pain is something we all experience. It's universal, yet deeply personal. But what many people don't realize is that pain is not a verdict. It's a signal, a biological, neurological message delivered by the nervous system. It's your body's way of saying something matters here. Pay attention, that's it. It's not there to define you, it's not a prophecy, and it's certainly not a sentence. But the moment we begin to fuse our identity with pain, we step into dangerous territory. We start to believe that we are the pain, that it owns. That belief alone can halt all progress, all forward motion. And that's where we must interrupt the cycle. Pain, whether physical or emotional, begins as a pattern of electrical signals. Your brain receives those signals and interprets them in the context of memory, meaning, and previous experience. And this interpretation is key, because while pain itself is real, the way we respond to it is trainable. It's plastic. You can shape it, rewire it, and even redirect it. That's not philosophy, that's neuroscience. Think about it like this. If pain is data, then you are the analyst. You can observe it, learn from it, and act on it. Or you can ignore it and allow it to overwhelm your entire system. That's a choice, one that becomes clearer once we understand that the brain isn't fixed. Neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to adapt and rewire, means that how we experience pain can change depending on how we frame it, how we breathe through it, and how we choose to move through it. The truth is, pain doesn't always mean stop. Sometimes it means you're in the right place. Growth lives at the edge of discomfort. That's where the most meaningful transformation happens, right at that boundary where most people quit. The difference between someone who uses pain as fuel and someone who uses it as an excuse is not about tolerance or some innate toughness. It's about awareness. It's about how they interpret the signal. When you feel pain, whether it's the soreness of pushing yourself physically or the ache of failure or rejection, it's easy to react with avoidance. To say, maybe I'm not built for this. But that's a reflex, not a reason, and you don't have to live inside your reflex. You can choose a response. Here's what happens when you shift that perspective. The same pain that used to paralyze you now becomes a marker, a signpost. It tells you that you're pushing into new terrain, that your system is adapting, that you're on the verge of change. That's where mental strength begins, not by avoiding what hurts, but by learning to interpret it differently. You're not a victim of sensation, you're a strategist of your own nervous system. And that shift in mindset starts to rewire everything else. When you stop fearing pain and start listening to it, it changes form. It becomes a guide, not a wall. And when you step into that mindset, something else happens. Your brain responds differently. Your stress levels adjust. Your dopamine pathways start lighting up, not just at the relief of pain ending, but at the process of working through it. That's the chemistry of grit. That's where purpose gets built. The challenge then is not to eliminate pain, but to meet it with curiosity instead of fear. Because once you do that, you're no longer running from something. You're moving towards something. And from there, pain is no longer a reason to stop. It becomes the very thing that propels you forward. The brain is often seen as something fixed, like a hardwired machine that can only operate within certain limits. But this couldn't be further from the truth. What science has shown us is that the brain is rockably adaptable. This capacity for change is called neuroplasticity, and it's the foundation for how we can transform pain from something that holds us back into something that drives us forward. The idea that our brains can be rewired through experience means that discomfort and challenge aren't just obstacles, they're opportunity. When you face pain or hardship, it's tempting to view it as a signal to retreat. That's the natural survival instinct. But your brain is not just reacting blindly, it's constantly learning from those experiences. Each time you face a challenge, your brain records that event and begins to create new pathways, new connections that shape how you respond the next time. This process isn't automatic, it's influenced by how you approach the pain. If you respond with fear and avoidance, your brain strengthens those circuits associated with withdrawal and limitation. But if you respond with intention and resilience, you can build circuits of endurance, courage, and growth. The process of rewiring the brain isn't magic or quick. It requires consistent, deliberate effort, what some might call practice. Every time you lean into discomfort rather than running away, you're reinforcing a new narrative in your brain that pain can be endured, even embraced as a sign of progress. This doesn't mean you have to be reckless or ignore genuine signals of danger. Rather, it means cultivating a different relationship to discomfort. It means teaching your brain that not all pain is harmful. Some pain is a necessary step in becoming stronger. One of the most fascinating aspects of neuroplasticity is how context shapes experience. Your brain doesn't process pain in isolation. It processes pain alongside meaning, emotion, and environment. For example, the same physical discomfort during a workout might feel intolerable if you're exhausted and stressed, but manageable or even energizing if you're focused on a clear goal or surrounded by support. This tells us that pain is deeply intertwined with how we interpret it. Changing the story around pain rewires the brain in a profound way. The implications are powerful. Imagine you're training for something physically demanding, like a marathon, or mentally exhausting, like mastering a new skill. At some point, discomfort will come. Your muscles will ache. Your mind will want to quit. Your body will scream for rest. The brain's wiring in that moment will determine whether you push through or give up. But this wiring is malleable. By intentionally practicing leaning into that discomfort by using techniques like focused breathing or reframing the sensation as progress rather than punishment, you are actively remodeling your brain's response. You're building resilience circuits that help you endure longer, adapt faster, and ultimately grow. This is where pain transforms from an enemy into an ally, because the brain, when trained, begins to anticipate challenge not with dread, but with preparedness. It learns to regulate stress hormones more efficiently. It adjusts neural pathways to prioritize motivation over avoidance, and it strengthens the mental habits that keep you moving forward even when things get hard. This is the essence of turning pain into fuel. It's important to recognize that this process isn't about ignoring pain or pretending it doesn't hurt. It's about engaging with it intelligently and with purpose. The brain's plasticity offers us a powerful tool, not just to survive pain, but to use it as a stepping stone toward becoming a stronger, more capable version of ourselves. Through deliberate effort and mental framing, we create new neural circuits that celebrate discomfort as a sign of growth, not a reason to stop. So the next time pain arises, consider it less as a stop sign and more as a signal that your brain is primed for transformation. The challenges you face aren't fixed limits, but invitations for your brain to rewire itself, to create new paths that lead to resilience and strength. And that is how discomfort becomes not just bearable, but the fuel that drives your evolution. Pain and stress are often seen as something purely negative, something to be avoided at all costs. But the reality is more nuanced. Stress, when managed correctly, is not only unavoidable but essential for growth. The key lies in understanding the relationship between stress and rest, and how these two elements together fuel transformation rather than destruction. Think about your muscles. When you work out, you apply stress to the muscle fibers. They tear microscopically. If you were to continually stress the muscle without giving it time to recover, it would never get stronger. Instead, it would weaken, become inflamed, and eventually break down. But when you give those muscles time to rest and recover, the body repairs them stronger than before. This cycle of stress followed by rest is fundamental to building physical strength, and the same principle applies to the brain and nervous system. When you experience pain, whether physical, emotional, or psychological, it activates stress pathways in the brain. This triggers the release of hormones like cortisol and adrenaline, which prepare your body to respond. In the short term, this response is vital. It heightens alertness, sharpens focus, and mobilizes energy. But if this stress response remains active without relief, it leads to exhaustion, burnout, and breakdown. That's why stress alone is harmful if it's unrelenting. The secret to using pain as fuel lies in coupling stress with deliberate rest and recovery. Rest is not just passive downtime, it is an active process where your brain and body recalibrate, repair, and adapt. During rest, the nervous system shifts from a heightened state of alertness to a state of relaxation and restoration. This transition is crucial because it allows the body to clear out stress hormones, repair damaged tissues, and consolidate learning and memory. In practical terms, this means that the pain and stress you face must be balanced with periods of rest where your mind and body can heal and grow. Without this balance, pain becomes destructive rather than constructive. But with it, pain signals a productive process, one that leads to growth and increased capacity. This balance is evident in many fields of human achievement. Elite athletes train intensely but also prioritize recovery through sleep, nutrition, and techniques like meditation or breathing exercises. Entrepreneurs and creatives push their mental limits but understand the importance of mental breaks and time away from work. This interplay between stress and rest is what fuels sustained performance and resilience over time. Furthermore, rest itself is not merely the absence of activity, it's a critical window where the brain strengthens the very neural connections that allow you to tolerate pain better in the future. During rest, the brain processes experiences and integrates lessons learned from stressful events. This neural consolidation forms the foundation for future adaptation, allowing you to respond more effectively to similar challenges. Without this cycle, the nervous system remains in a state of heightened arousal, which can amplify the sensation of pain and increase sensitivity to stress. This makes pain feel worse, turning it from a manageable signal into an overwhelming barrier. But with regular recovery, the brain resets its baseline, making pain feel less threatening and more like a manageable challenge. Ultimately, understanding that stress and rest work together transforms how you view pain. Instead of being a pure negative, pain becomes part of a dynamic system where growth is possible. It reminds us that pain without rest leads to breakdown, but pain followed by rest leads to breakthrough. This perspective allows you to approach pain with patience and strategy. You learn to respect the stress as necessary, but also to honor the recovery that makes that stress productive. You no longer fear discomfort because you know it's a sign your system is being challenged and that growth is underway. But you also don't ignore the need to rest, because without recovery, that pain becomes an excuse to quit, not fuel to continue. So the goal is to harness pain within this cycle, to push hard, then pause and restore, to allow your nervous system the time it needs to repair and strengthen. This is the natural rhythm of growth, and embracing it turns pain from a roadblock into the engine that drives you forward. Avoiding pain is a natural instinct. When we experience discomfort, whether it's physical soreness, emotional distress, or mental challenge, the first impulse is often to pull back, to protect ourselves from further harm. This reaction has served us well from an evolutionary standpoint. Pain signals danger, so avoidance can keep us safe. But in modern life, this natural tendency to avoid pain can actually weaken us rather than protect us. The threshold of what we can tolerate diminishes when we consistently shy away from discomfort, and this has profound effects on our resilience and capacity to grow. When you avoid pain repeatedly, the brain and nervous system adjust to expect safety and ease. Over time, this lowers the tolerance for stress and discomfort because the nervous system no longer practices managing those sensations. It's similar to how muscles weaken when they're not exercised. Avoidance essentially becomes a form of neurological atrophy. The pathways that could help you endure and adapt to pain become underdeveloped or dormant, leaving you more vulnerable to future challenges. This is why leaning into pain deliberately and consciously strengthens the system. When you choose to face discomfort, you are actively training your nervous system to tolerate and even thrive amidst stress. Each time you endure a difficult situation without retreating, you send a message to your brain, "This is manageable, I am capable." Over time, this rewires your neural circuits to enhance resilience. Pain becomes less of a threat and more of a signal for growth. The key is not to become reckless or ignore serious injury or trauma, but to develop an awareness that distinguishes between harmful pain that requires care and constructive pain that builds capacity. Constructive pain is often the discomfort that comes with pushing your limits, whether physically, mentally, or emotionally. It's the kind of challenge that, when faced repeatedly, expands your tolerance and makes you stronger. Avoidance also affects how we emotionally and mentally engage with the world. When we consistently run from pain, we inadvertently strengthen fear circuits in the brain. Fear and avoidance create a feedback loop that heightens anxiety and sensitivity, making the next experience of pain even more intense. On the other hand, exposure to controlled, manageable pain weakens those fear circuits. It teaches the brain that pain is not always catastrophic, but often transient and even beneficial. This has been observed in many therapeutic settings where gradual exposure to feared stimuli, whether physical sensations or emotional triggers, leads to diminished anxiety and improved coping. It's a powerful reminder that what we avoid controls us more than that we confront. When pain is met with curiosity rather than fear, the nervous system recalibrates. The brain releases neurotransmitters that help modulate the pain experience, allowing you to function despite discomfort. This process, often called pain habituation, is a natural adaptation that results from repeated, controlled exposure to pain signals. With practice, the brain literally learns to downregulate the intensity of pain and stress responses. This capacity to habituate to pain is what differentiates those who use pain as fuel from those who use it as an excuse. It's not that they don't feel pain, they do. But their nervous system's response is different. They have learned to sit with discomfort, to tolerate uncertainty, and to move forward despite it. This ability can be cultivated deliberately through mindset, breathing techniques, and intentional exposure to challenge. By leaning into pain, you build mental toughness, but more importantly, you build mental flexibility. Pain no longer locks you into a fixed response of avoidance or despair. Instead, it becomes an experience that your brain knows how to navigate skillfully. It's no longer the enemy, but a signal that you have the capacity to respond, adapt, and overcome. In the end, avoiding pain may feel like protection in the short term, but it slowly erodes the system's strength. Embracing pain with intention and awareness rewires your brain and body to become stronger, more adaptable, and more anti-fragile. This is the foundation of true resilience, being shaped not by avoidance but by courageous engagement with discomfort. And that is how pain transforms from a limit into a launchpad for growth. The way you talk to yourself during pain matters more than most people realize. Our internal dialogue, the words and thoughts we use when we experience discomfort, can shape not only how we feel emotionally, but also how our brain and body respond physically. Pain isn't just a sensation, it's an experience that involves complex interactions between the nervous system, hormones, and the mind. What you say to yourself in those moments influences this entire system and can either amplify your suffering or transform that suffering into something manageable and even motivating. When pain arises, there's a natural tendency to fall into negative self-talk phrases like, "I can't handle this," "This is unbearable," or "Why does this always happen to me?" These thoughts increase the brain's perception of threat. The more your brain perceives pain as a threat, the more it activates stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline. These chemicals heighten alertness, but also amplify the sensation of pain, creating a vicious cycle where pain feels worse and your distress grows. This reaction is entirely biological. Your brain is wired to prioritize survival, and negative self-talk signals danger, making pain feel like something to escape at all costs. However, if you shift your internal dialogue even slightly, if you choose to say to yourself, "This is difficult, but I can handle it," or "This pain is a sign I'm pushing my limits and growing," you start to change the brain's chemistry. Instead of triggering a fight or flight response, you engage areas of the brain involved in cognitive control and emotional regulation. This helps to tone down the stress response, reducing cortisol levels and balancing neurotransmitters like dopamine and serotonin, which regulate mood and motivation. This shift in chemistry makes a profound difference in how pain feels and how you respond to it. When pain is framed as fuel rather than a threat, your nervous system doesn't overreact. Instead, it prepares you. You engage with the challenge. You become more focused, more energized, and better able to sustain effort through discomfort. This is why athletes, performers, and high achievers often talk about embracing the grind or leaning into the pain. They have learned to speak to themselves in ways that reshape their brain's response, turning stress hormones into performance enhancers rather than blockers. What's fascinating is that this internal dialogue is not something you have to accept passively. It's something you can train, much like a muscle. Through deliberate practice, whether it's through mindfulness, visualization, or even simple reframing techniques, you can create new neural pathways that support more adaptive self-talk. Over time, these new pathways become the default, so when pain arises, your brain automatically shifts into a mode of resilience instead of resistance. This process also highlights the importance of language and mindset in shaping biology. Your words are more than just abstract thoughts, they are signals your nervous system interprets in real time. Positive growth-oriented self-talk acts like a calming agent, helping to regulate your autonomic nervous system and reduce the intensity of pain. Negative, fear-based self-talk does the opposite, increasing tension, heart rate, and pain sensitivity. In practical terms, this means that when you encounter pain or discomfort, your first task is not just to endure it, but to consciously choose how you speak to yourself about it. This is where awareness becomes powerful. Catching yourself in moments of despair or negativity and gently redirecting your thoughts toward constructive, empowering language can alter the trajectory of your experience. It's not about denying the pain or pretending it doesn't hurt. It's about changing the story you tell yourself around that pain. Ultimately, your internal dialogue is a tool, one of the most accessible and potent tools you have for transforming pain into fuel. It reshapes your brain's response, modulates your biochemistry, and influences your behavior. By learning to speak to yourself with intention and kindness during moments of discomfort, you unlock the capacity to move through pain with strength and purpose rather than being stopped by it. This is why making pain your fuel starts in the mind, with the words you choose to accompany your experience. Because pain is not just what happens to you, it's what you tell yourself about what happens. And that story has the power to change everything. Pain by itself can feel overwhelming, confusing, and sometimes meaningless. Without a clear reason or purpose, it easily turns into suffering, a heavy weight that drains your energy and clouds your mind. But when pain is connected to a meaningful why, it becomes bearable, even empowering. Purpose is the lens that changes pain from a burden into fuel. This is why people who face immense challenges often talk about how a strong sense of meaning kept them going when everything else felt impossible. Purpose acts as a psychological compass. It gives context to pain and frames it as part of a larger journey, rather than an isolated event. When you know what you're working toward, whether it's a personal goal, a commitment to someone else, or a deep value, you can endure discomfort with more patience and resolve. Pain ceases to be something you suffer passively. It becomes a necessary step toward something greater. This connection between pain and purpose is supported by neuroscience. When your brain identifies a clear goal or meaning behind the struggle, it releases neurotransmitters like dopamine and endorphins that regulate motivation and reduce the subjective experience of these chemicals. Help you focus on progress rather than suffering. The brain essentially rewards you for pushing through pain because it knows that overcoming challenges leads to meaningful outcomes. Without purpose, pain feels random and uncontrollable. The brain interprets it as a threat without context, which triggers fear, anxiety, and avoidance behaviors. This is when pain turns into an excuse to quit, to give up, or to retreat. But purpose shifts the narrative. It creates a mental framework that says this pain is part of something worthwhile. It has meaning. That shift alone can change your entire experience. Purpose also fuels perseverance. When pain threatens to overwhelm you, purpose is what reminds you why it's worth pushing through. It keeps your attention anchored on the long-term vision rather than the immediate discomfort. This focus helps regulate the brain's stress response, preventing it from spiraling into panic or despair. Instead, it fosters resilience, the ability to bounce back stronger. Interestingly, purpose can be both something you discover and something you create. Sometimes it comes from external sources, a relationship, a mission, a cause larger than yourself. Other times it's an internal decision to assign meaning to your pain, to view it as a rite of passage or an opportunity for growth. Either way, the act of connecting pain to purpose rewires your brain's emotional response and changes your physiology. This is why many people who face hardship emphasize the importance of mindset. It's not just about enduring pain, but about framing that pain within a meaningful story. The stories we tell ourselves about our suffering shape our neural circuits and influence whether we feel defeated or empowered. Purpose is the narrative glue that holds the process together. Ultimately, when pain is fueled by purpose, it becomes a tool rather than a weapon against you. It motivates you to keep moving forward, to adapt, and to grow. It helps you transcend immediate suffering by anchoring your experience in something bigger. This is the difference between pain that breaks you and pain that builds you. So if you want to make pain your fuel rather than your excuse, start by finding or creating meaning in your struggle. Ask yourself, what am I working toward? Why does this matter? What will be different if I endure this pain? The answers to these questions are the key to unlocking resilience and turning discomfort into power. In this way, purpose transforms pain from a dead end into a launching pad. It aligns your mind and body toward growth and helps you harness your pain as a source of strength rather than a reason to stop. That alignment is the ultimate secret to enduring, thriving, and ultimately transcending the pain you encounter.